Alright, welcome back to the Supercoach NFL channel. In this video, we're going to continue with our tier list series for the 2025 NFL Supercoach season, this time focusing on running backs. So similar to the last video where we looked at quarterbacks, we do have our categories of lock, which is, those elite type options, pick, so like obviously a great pick, a pod, so probably one that's not as popular but could do something, super pod for if you're feeling extra spicy in the position. But I have also included watch lists, so some players that might not have the fastest start, but definitely one to keep an eye on and could be very good downgrade options through the season, as well as an avoid. And so because there's so many running backs, this might be a bit haphazard, but we'll do our best to make sure we get them all. So in terms of the locks, at the elite sort of end, I think Bijan is a pretty decent lock. Scrolling through. Just trying to think who else. Well, Ashton Genty as a cheapie, if we can get him up on the screen. He is an absolute lock given the job security and his cheap starting price. Saquon, I think, probably has to go on the low end of that tier. He is very expensive, so I do understand if you do want to cut him. And probably CMC as well. So, obviously under a bit of an injury cloud in terms of he missed all of last year, but it sounds like he's fit. So at his price, I think he is one you have to find room for. So after that, I think Gibbs is a great pick, so let's lock him in. Hampton as a cheapie is a great pick. I think he should feature in most teams. He could almost be in the lock category as well, just given that he looks like he will be the running back one at a team that's very focused on the run game. So I might actually bump him up there. The great man, Derrick Henry, is a great pick. We'll throw him in there. Who else? I feel like I'm missing someone. I guess depending on the injury update status, I think A-Chan's a pretty good pick too. So we'll lock those in. And then in terms of other cheapies, I'll put RJ Harvey in as a pod just because I think there is a bit of a discussion whether he or J.K. Dobbins will get more time going into round one or week one. But at his price, if you're looking for a third cheapie, I think he's a great option. You've also got Henderson, if I can find him. There he is. So potentially the starter at the Giants or the Patriots. Who's he with? The Patriots, New England. So these guys are great options if you're looking to save a bit of money at running back. Put these guys on the bench. You could definitely play Genty. I think week to week, Hampton is a potential play in the buy rounds. So you can run with these guys on your bench too. But then after that, in terms of some of the keeper options, Montgomery can go big on any given week, so we'll give him a shout out. James Conner's pretty solid, but we'll put him as a super pod. Not Rico Dowdle. Chuba Hubbard, super pod. James Cook, probably high end super pod, low end pod. DeAndre Swift, probably super pod. So I think Chase Brown is a great pod. He's almost up in the pick category. I did get him in my redraft league, so I'm probably going to fade him in the Supercoach league just because I trying to spread the wealth in terms of assets, but I do like Chase Brown as a pick. Bit of value. Um, where are we up to? Jerome Ford is probably the starter there. Probably putting a void. He's never. He can have a couple big weeks, but he'll lose the money just as quickly. Javonte Williams with the injury risk. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt at Superpod, but is prone to injury. Josh Jacobs, definitely throw him in the pod category. Solid. Mixon's injured, so he isn't a void. So Nick Chubb would be the super pod to watch there. Jonathan Taylor, pod, good runner, but I guess they do have two running QBs there at the Colts. Um, so we've talked about those. Kyron Williams, just based on volume, is a potential pod. Isaiah Pacheco, so given the value, I actually like him as a pick. If you're looking for a slightly above price cheapie, he won't be an elite scorer in that sense, but he can make you some good money to start the season, I think. So we'll put him there. Um, we've covered off there. Aaron Jones would be a starter. Super pod. Uh, Kamara. So he does have a bit of pass catching, but probably doesn't have the quarterback to back it up. So he's probably in the pod category. Tyron Tracy would be the starter there. So I'm going to say super pod just because hasn't had the, well, probably pod actually because he's probably a bit cheaper. So if he does go off, it could be some good value there. Brees Hall, probably in the super pod category just because he's not cheap and they do have Justin Fields who likes to run the ball. There's also a bit of talk about Braylon Allen getting an expanded workload, so he's one I'll throw straight away on the watch list. Um, Definitely one to keep an eye out on this season. Saquon, we've covered. Jalen Warren would be the starter here, so probably in the super pod sort of category, higher up. Just given that it probably will be a split backfield in terms of running backs. And another one we'll throw on the watch list now is Caleb Johnson. It's been pretty hyped up as a cheapie, but will split time. But I think if Warren's injured, he could, get the share of the workload and make some cash. Um, so we've covered San Fran. Kenneth Walker is probably in that pod sort of conversation. Bucky Irving is another one I'll put as a cheaper type pick. Put him next to Chase Brown there. So this is my 1-2 combination in my redraft league. So probably won't pick them in Supercoach. I'm going for some of these more lock options, but I do like either of them if you don't have enough money to get an elite option. Tony Pollard is probably in the pod conversation given that Tajay Spears has gone down injured. So won't be a lot of competition for work there at the Titans. And then Brian Robinson Jr. is gone, traded to San Fran. So he is an avoid if you were looking at him as the RB1 at Washington. He's no longer that way. But this Krosky Merritt is pretty hyped up. So I'm going to put him on the watch list. He could be running back one there at Washington, but they do have the experience of Austin Eckler. Rodriguez was getting a lot of touches in preseason. So it's one definitely to keep an eye on, but nothing too crazy there. I just realised I've missed Travis Etienne. Was that wrong team? So I missed Travis Etienne. I'll put him in the super pod list just because there is a bit of a three-way discussion between Bigsby, Tootin, Etienne, who starts. So Tootin at his price is probably one to put in the watch list. I've forgotten Bigsby's price, but I guess you could throw him in there too. Um, just going through other potential cheapies. So I think Ollie Gordon is one to throw on the watch list because Jalen Wright is injured. Achan's under a bit of an injury cloud, so Gordon could find himself a bit of a role early doors this season. So one to keep an eye on there. Just going through. Scatterbo's been pretty hyped up, so definitely one to throw on the watch list. Um, After that, I don't think there's too many others. I guess obviously if the number one options go down, the likes of a Rashad White might be worth a look, or Charbonnet, for example, but they're already pretty highly priced given they have done a fair bit of work in the past. So probably wouldn't worry too much about them. We've got our downgrade options here. We've got our grade options at the top, and I think that's the main ones we need to focus on. So yeah, I think that's all we need to do for this video. So as always, if you've got any questions, comments, thoughts, feel free to add them below this video. Give us a like if you enjoy the NFL content. Subscribe for all the fantasy sports content on the channel. And other than that, we'll catch you in the next one.